Ingles inbound to Gobert, gives it right back to Ingles. 4 on the shot clock. Slow-mo Joe for 3, bang! Jingles rings the bell right there from the left side, and the Jazz are up 7.
That was the last time we played the Warriors. Jazz up 7. Great one tonight at Energy Solutions. We'll talk about it. Plus, what's going on with the Chicago Bulls? Is the league really have parity like we think it does? The All-Star selections and a status check on the Utah Jazz. It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip-Off. Pow! I think we have fixed the audio problems. I actually think I had it again this morning, which caused for a slight delay to start the broadcast today. Hope you're well. Thanks very much for tuning in. I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA Insider. You can follow me on Facebook at David Locke as well as Locked On Sports. You can those two are available for you if you're on Locked On Sports. I've been posting kind of my basic prep sheet, which hopefully you like, and get me on Twitter at Locked On Sports as well. And we have a great Google Plus community with Dallas Sawyer and a bunch of other guys, McKay Allen and Alan Zog and Ryan Scott do a fabulous job maintaining, and would love to have some more moderators to that. So I will try to amp that up here in a little bit, but that's available for you. So those are all the things we do. If you get a chance to leave 5 stars on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to this podcast, it is greatly appreciated as well and makes a really large difference to what we do. So let's dig into it right away today. Thanks so much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Hey, I had one real world thought today. I don't usually do this, but I'm so interested in this. So Romney's going to announce today if he's going to run. I think it could be one of the more interesting presidential campaigns ever if he does, and here's what I mean by that. I think anyone who's followed, I'm assuming a large majority of our audience is interested in Romney, by the way. If anyone has followed Romney's career, the man who ran for president last is not consistent with the Massachusetts governor and most of his beliefs and how he represented himself prior to becoming, at least in my opinion, a minion for the Republican Party. Is that too strong? I think you could have as independent a candidate as we may ever have, again, who will be listened to. So John Anderson in 1980 is the last independent candidate to run for president who wasn't controlled by the party features. If I'm right, what we could really see is how dramatically different a candidate Romney is 4 years later, maybe heading back. But if you think about John McCain, how different a candidate he was the second time through when he really suddenly was. And Romney, even within his first presidential run versus his second presidential run, made some pretty dramatic policy shifts and approach differences. And I think it could be, I'm hoping if he runs that we could have what I would call the first honest candidate. Rather, there might be a level of looseness to him that I've lost already. I'm fine if I lose again, but I'm going to at least do it my way this time. Could be fascinating. All right, sorry, that's not sports. But I do actually live outside of this bubble a little bit and read about some other things. All right, let's get to the NBA 5 right away. Whoa, that's the wrong one. That's lucky I stopped that in time because that's a player that's no longer on our team.
This is Alec Burks, and you're a Locked On Jazz.
Thanks, Alec. I think as of last night, I might officially dismiss the Chicago Bulls from, from a contending team. There's so many days left. We've seen with the Cleveland Cavaliers. We've seen it every year as the teams come back around. But the Chicago Bulls last night lost in regulation, or tied in regulation to the Lakers in a game where they just weren't engaged. They then came back. They then got it to overtime twice and couldn't knock them out. And at some point, missing Mike Dunleavy shouldn't be that big a deal. And it's clear to me right now, this is not always how the case is because the numbers actually don't back this up, but watching them last night compared to watching them with the Warriors, the more players they're missing, the better off they are. There's a tug of war going on the floor for shots. Jimmy Butler got 17, went to the line 18 times at 35. Derrick Rose goes 7 of 26. On the other end, maybe this is not that complicated. Maybe Derrick Rose just isn't good anymore. And Derrick Rose is taking 26 shots a night, and he's not good anymore. I know that's terrible and a bummer, but I wonder if it's true. I mean, even in his best year, when he shot 45%, 33% from the field, went to the free throw line 7 times a game. He now goes to the line 3 times a game. He shoots 3 percentage points worse, down to 41.6. He takes a few fewer shots and doesn't use as many possessions, and he shoots more threes, which he's not good at. But I actually thought his feel for the game last night was awful. Yeah, he hit a step back the other day in Golden State, but he took the same step back last night and it was miserable. So it's kind of a bummer, but I kind of wonder if that one's over. It sounds as like, if it hasn't happened officially, I didn't check news this morning, that Jacques Vaughn is done in Orlando. Former Jazz man. Seems like it's over. The disconnect has gotten too much. They're 15-33. I thought they were a playoff team. I thought they were going to be able to make a run and do something, and they're not. And Memphis last night just crushed. Denver didn't have it in them, and Memphis took advantage. Memphis, by the way, is the number 2 team in the West by a game and a half now over the rest of the crew. They've won 8 of 10, 4 in a row. Houston has won 3 in a row. The Clippers won 6 in a row. The separation of the really good teams is beginning to happen. We're beginning to see the big difference. Sacramento has lost 7 in a row. We are now tied with them in the win column. If you were playing the lottery tank game and that worried about it, which people don't seem to be, there's some interesting elements that are going on here right now, because there are 4 teams, the Knicks, the Sixers, the Lakers, and the Timberwolves, and the Lakers might start winning without Kobe, that are at 12 or fewer wins. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams between 15 and 18 wins who clearly have, if they're trying to position themselves, could do so. The All-Stars came out. The outrage is that Damian Lillard didn't make the All-Stars game. I'm not as outraged. First of all, he's going to make it because Kobe will be out and he'll be the replacement. I'm not as outraged as some others on this level of both Westbrook and Durant. I saw some tweets. I thought Steve Loom, I think, might have tweeted it. The idea that, hey, you got to play a certain amount of games to be eligible for the All-Star game. Okay, on the other level, the fact that Kevin Durant's played 20 games and every coach still thinks he's an All-Star tells you how great Kevin Durant is. And he is the second best player in our league, and it is a celebration of the stars of the league, and he probably should be there. Russell Westbrook's a little harder to swallow, but I kind of put it in the same category. At some point, you're just so iconic inside the league while you're there that you make the All-Star game. And I just can't complain that heavily that we're complaining that Kevin Durant, the MVP of the league, who has been, when he's played, the best player in the league. Like, it'd be different if Kevin Durant was having a bad year. He's just been injured. So, I'm sorry, I can't quibble that. We had Dirk as an All-Star. Nobody else seems to be on that one. And I would really like it if Kyle Korver could make the All-Star team. I have a larger problem with that. And I guess I probably should take the next step, which is to say who I think he should make the team instead of, in fairness. But I just think teams have still – I tweeted about this last night, and I've talked about this a lot on the NBA 5 recently. people have lost the understanding of the value of the 3-point shooter still. People don't get it still in this league. Coaches, GMs, I think Dennis does, but not all GMs. And we're going to find out when Wesley goes in the open market this year. But there isn't a tremendous value to the guy who jacks 6 and 7 threes a game. Two teams. Let me see if I can get this right for you. 35 players in the NBA take average 5.3 attempts a game from three. Only 7 play for a team with a losing record. CJ Miles is the only player in the NBA taking 6 or more threes who plays on a team with a losing record. There's something to it. 20 players in the NBA average 5.5 or more 3 attempts a game. 15 of the 20 play on a winning team. 9 of the 20 play on a top 4 team in a conference. There's something to it. Trey Burke, over the last games, is bombing. He's taken 34 threes in 4 games. He's hit on 35% of them. Shoot more. He's a 38% shooter regularly, which comes out to 0.76 points per shot. He's a 35% three-point shooter in the last 4 games. That's 1.05 points per shot. Shoot the three. We're far better off. I still don't think that the league gets the value of the guy that takes 6, 7 threes a game. I really don't. And it's going to be interesting in free agency whether people get it and whether in the draft people get it. Denver drafted a kid by the name of Gary Harris. I don't know if he's going to be any good, but that was my one thought on him in the draft, was that I thought he might be able to be a guy that blasts that many. Randy Foye probably should have been better appreciated. He's kind of done now in his career because I think he could do those things. Now, Gary Harris, by the way, can't hit the backside of the barn, but I was just this year he's shooting 23% from 3 and 26% from the field. So, he may not turn out to be that player. But I truly believe that aspect of the game is being lost with some level of regularity. That is the NBA 5.
Hi, Jazz Nation. This is Enes Kanter. Thanks for being the best fans in the NBA.
I thought it might be worth doing a little status check on the Utah Jazz, particularly because, quite honestly, I think we're going to have a tough little stretch here, and we could get down a little bit and kind of we could lose our bearings a little bit about what's going on. And I actually haven't pre-done this, but I think I have an idea of how it's going to turn out. And I'll let you go on the little journey with me. So for those of you that are on the video, we can turn on the screen share and bring you on the. Well, no, we can't actually. Interesting. Give me 1 second. I'll have to change the way the Google Hangout is today. Google's changed something on me there, and I will now be able to screen share with you. Originally, they usually open it in a separate tab, and they just start opening it in the same tab. All right, so. Let's go take a look at the Jazz of last year and compare them to the Jazz of this year. And it's a different roster. This is a much younger roster, starting and then having lost, frankly, 2 players at the exact same position this year. Changes a little bit of who this team is. I mean, Joe Ingles, who I think is a great story and I like as a guy, nobody in their right mind should have ever thought that Joe Ingles was playing 30 minutes a game for anyone this season. That's just not that's not something that anyone would have ever taken it. So let's start with this. This is last year's team that I have up on the screen. And last year our defensive rating was a 109.1. Our differential was a negative 8.4. Our best month of the year last year was January, defensively at a 106.6 and at a negative 0.8 differential. And let's take a look at our 10, if there's a good 10-game stretch anywhere in there. Our best 10-game stretch last year, we were never positive over any 10-game stretch, but our best defensive 10-game stretch last year was games 51 to 60, and it was a 106.5. Our best 10-game stretch offensively was games 31 to 40 with a 106.3, and our best differential in any 10-game stretch was a negative 1.5. Right? Okay. And there's some disasters in there. So that's last year's Jazz team, I think, summed up. I could do so let's switch it over and look at through 47 games. We don't have the whole package anymore. What we look like. Our defensive rating for the year is a 106.2. So 3 points per 100 possessions better defensively than we were a year ago. Pretty substantial. Our differential is a minus 3.4 compared to a minus 8.4 a year ago. Huge difference. Huge difference. That's incredible. I mean, that's fixing a 5-point differential. That's a monumental change, and I think you could probably put a legitimate argument into which roster is better. Okay? Our best defensive month so far has been January at 102.2 compared to last year's January at 106.6. Pretty big. Our differential in a month has never been as good as last year's January of 0.8. We're at negative 1.6. Let's take a look at 10-game stretches. Our best defensive 10-game stretch is games 31 through 40 at a 102.0. Last year was a 106.5. That's 4 points per 100 possessions. Better defensively. Our best offensive stretch, games 1 through 10, 106.1, exactly where we were at 106.8. Our offense has really begun to fall off. We're beginning to struggle offensively. If you look at the sheet in front of you, our 10-game stretch, we're starting to turn the ball over a ton. We're at 18 possessions a game turnover. Our effective field goal percentage is slipping a little bit. Our true shooting percentage is slipping even more, which means we're not going to the free throw line at all. We're struggling on the offensive end. We don't have great shooters. There's some signs that it's turning as we're making a bunch of corner threes, and it shows you some spacing is better. Frankly, we might not have good enough players on the floor right now. I mean, that's, Richard Jefferson and Marvin Williams are actually pretty good decent offensive players at times. Our best differential on a 10-game stretch is 0.9 positive, which we never were positive for any 10-game stretch last year. But maybe you didn't need that, but I thought it was worth just revisiting that there's a tremendous amount of progress that's been made. There really an enormous amount right there. Our differential being 5 points better than it was a year ago is a lot. Our defensive rating being 3 points better and really starting off terribly. Our best 10-game stretch defensive rating is 4 points better. Our best month defensive rating is 4 points better. Worth the status check, I thought, at least in my opinion. All right, it's Question Friday. I'll get to all your questions. Let's get to them. From Angie. Nice to hear from you, Ange. Is there a metric that looks at run prevention as it applies to defense? I'd be interested to know how much keeping opponents out of rhythm is important to good defensive schemes. I like that. I wonder how you would look at that. I like the idea. It's how do you avoid the 4-minute blast, right? That's what got us. We were tied at 53 against the Warriors last time. They went nuts. Great question. You're too smart, I think. I think you're too smart. Let's go to Ray. With the upcoming trade line, do you think playoff team would be interested in Steve Novak? I imagine he's not in the Jazz plan for next season. What are the benefits of Utah holding on to him? Probably not a lot of benefits of holding on to him. He's a good veteran, great guy. good to have around the team, good influence because he's a pro, understands his role, understands what to do. But we're paying him a lot. I think he might have a player option for next year, if I remember correctly. So yeah, if somebody thinks that he could help stretch the floor for him, I don't think there's a lot of value. In fact, in this league, the way people are with money, we might actually have to give something up to, send him with something. Send him with a second-round draft pick for a second-round draft pick. I have no idea. But there is some reason why, salary-wise, it would make some sense to move him. With Trey on the U.S. side, bad guys. Dante on the international side, good guys. What do you think of the storyline of them going up against each other? It makes it worth watching, right? The idea that Dante and Trey could go head-to-head is make it worth watching. I'll give Trey this. I think he's been incredibly mature. I think he has been very supportive from everything I've seen. You never see him, sulking off the court when he gets taken out. He has played with more, if not the same amount of energy coming off the bench as he has starting. I don't think he's been particularly selfish in that fashion. I would give him credit for the maturity. There doesn't seem to be a great animosity building between the two of them while they are competing for their livelihoods. I think sometimes with all the stuff surrounding Trey, Trey's maturity is impressive to me. Gabrielle, it's no secret the Jazz don't have much wing depth, especially with injuries to Hood and Burks. With Quinn's system predicated on spacing and being able to hit the outside shot, do you see the Jazz being interested in Stauskas in Sacramento? I do see them being a little interested in him. I know some people really liked him. There's also some questions on him. He's not particularly athletic. He's not a great handler. That Michigan system may be pretty advantageous to players at that position. He can't seem to shoot at all. You'd have to really go back and review whether you believe he's really that good a shooter from Michigan days. I think that would be the biggest issue to me on him. He's shooting 36% and 28% from three. You would need for me to go, you'd have to go back and look at his Michigan and figure out whether he's that much of a dead-eye shooter. The situation in Sacramento is not good, but I get reluctant believing players change out of situations. Last 10 games, Nick's played better. He's shooting 42% from the field, 36% from three. So maybe you're beginning to see him turn that around. But I think you better really review your collegiate recruiting and make sure you really liked him. Yes, I think could be some interest. Not everybody has figured out how to get their questions up the right way. But actually, I have to go get the kids. So those are all the questions. That means we're done for the day. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning in to Tip Off. Enjoy your weekend.